Love. Some would say it took a backseat when the pandemic forced us apart. As a family-run and proudly Canadian-owned company, Charm Diamond Centers saw the need to bring us together with tales of love and created the Canadian Love Map podcast. Since then, we've shared hundreds of real, uplifting stories that prove love conquers all. So thank you for listening. We couldn't do it without you. And remember, love starts here.
These were moments that not everybody gets, and there were nothing that I took for granted. And I just wanted to experience the country and follow my bliss.
Hi, I'm Nancy Regan. Welcome back to the Canadian Love Map. Today's episode belongs to one of the funniest people in Canada. Ron James has had a decades-long love affair with audiences across the country, and now he's written a book about that long-standing relationship. It's called All Over the Map, and that's also an apt description of my conversation with him. Enjoy! Hey, Ron, so great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm honored, Nancy.
Do you know what? I owe you a huge debt of gratitude. And I want to start with this because during the bleakest time in the pandemic, in that first lockdown, you lit up my face with a huge smile when you did a show from your living room.
Oh, thanks. Oh, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, you tuned into that New Year's show. Yeah.
It was
that was
great.
well, you guys, although I couldn't hear you laughing, I was hoping you were, because it was certainly a way for me to stay engaged and besides maybe put a few bucks in my kitty, it was my way of making sense of the chaos we'd all been walking through in the language of laughs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what people needed on New Year's Eve. And we'd all been in lockdown and just so worried and frustrated with how the pandemic was not progressing to the direction we wanted it to. So thanks very much. That was a good experience. I'm glad you tuned in.
Well, it felt like a gift. It really did. It felt like, as you say, needed laughter. Yeah, it felt like a gift, but so does your book. Your book feels to me like a love letter to your Canadian audiences.
That's exactly what I was hoping for. So thank you. It's been, it's coming back from Los Angeles in 93 and writing up and down a shaky town in 94 and paying off the debt incurred, chasing that elusive sitcom dream, the moving target of, for want of a better word, I suppose, television fame in LA, going down to do the series, having it canceled, being in Newsweek on Tuesday with our cast picture, this is the show to watch. And on Monday, being chest deep in a hole on Robert Urich's front yard, pulling a rotted bush out with my buddy's father's landscaping company. It's sobering. And chasing the American dream sired my Canadian one. So when I came back, writing up and down in shaky town moved me into stand-up. And I think slowly but surely, one kilometer at a time, one gig at a time, it began playing soft seat theaters. And in the book, I talk about that first tour around the frozen lip of Lake Superior in February when I was smack dab in the heart of the Canadian Shield, scoured granite hard by retreating glaciers. It's where they just left yesterday, being drop kicked in the solar plexus, turning the tip of highway up by Gitche Gumi and feeling like I'd stepped right into a Group of Seven painting. I thought, this is it. There's something else that's holy and real that's going on here than just the gig. And look, I mean, I wasn't exactly playing theaters. I was playing smoke-choked legions, church basements, community centers, high school gymnasiums, and dodging logging trucks that threatened to bounce me into the afterlife. But it was tactile. It was a real you could feel. And it was something that I was doing myself. that didn't depend on an agent's endorsement, that didn't depend on a manager's strategy, because nobody believed 25 years ago that playing soft seat theaters in Canada was really worth the goal, the grail. But after those 3 years spent chasing it in Los Angeles, I knew that there could be a legitimate one here. And what became so wonderful was hearing this heartline hum, this soul note that was being sung by people in place in my travels from one point of the compass to another.
Tell me about that.
Well, whether it was enjoying a sandwich on the beach in September in Stephenville, Newfoundland, before the gig that night, talking to an elderly grandmother flying back from Toronto, where she was visiting her children who'd flown her there on flying points they got from flying back and forth from Fort Mac, or talking to an Indigenous kid at the Safeway in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, about the racism he'd experienced his whole life, sitting behind a million-year-old boulder dropped by retreating glaciers on the tundra, while an Indigenous caribou hunter told me of his escape from the downtown east side and heroin addiction, to an elderly waitress at the Delta Hotel in Calgary who referred to Alberta as the land of opportunity, that when her mom and dad were killed in a car accident coming around Kelly's Mountain in the winter snowstorm in '67, she was left with 11 brothers and sisters to take care of because she was the oldest. She read about Alberta in Time magazine and moved out herself and then flew them all out one at a time. But she also told me that the two oldest boys, there was just this beautiful humor, this soul humor in the middle of all these stories as well, which I love. I love when the dramatic and the comedic are in tandem, because that's really what life is. Mm-hmm. And that's the hard challenge. And this is, like, you're talking about soul here. And I think that's where the soul note sings the loudest, right? And because life's not perfect. And as Dad used to say, there was one perfect man, Ronnie, and they crucified him. Can't be perfect. So anyway, and she told me that the boys were working in the pit when they got big, the two oldest fellas. And that great Cape Breton accent from the other side of the causeway, she said, so they wouldn't talk to me when they were at the kitchen table. They'll just sit down and shovel the food into their mouth. So do you know what I got? I got chopsticks. Yes, I did. I got chopsticks for them. You ever tried to eat mashed potatoes with chopsticks? Honest to God.
That'll slow you down.
I roared. I would talk to people in Prince George, or people would tell me stories of their lives in Nelson, BC. And I wanted to be a journalist a long time ago after I graduated from Acadia. Mm-hmm. So I think I was vicariously answering my journalism ambitions of a younger man before I moved into comedy. So I was diligent. I kept my moleskins and filled in journals when I was on the road, so that whenever anybody talked to me, I wrote it down shortly afterwards. And I had my routine. I'd wake up in the morning, I'd go for my run, I'd come back, I'd have another breakfast. Then maybe I'd just go to a cafe or whatever, or crack the newspaper. But I always did my research. I always put my feet on the ground, and I was able to experience the country from the soles of my feet up, like to go to Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump and talk to a Blackfoot docent as he told me all the names of the points of land in Blackfoot. These were moments that not everybody gets, and there were nothing that I took for granted. And I just wanted to experience the country and follow my bliss.
This podcast is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, Canada's largest family-owned jewelry store. They are proud to be putting love on the map, and the staff at Charm Diamond Centers are thrilled to be a part of your love story too. So visit charmdiamondcenters.com or one of your local stores. Love starts here. Ron, I remember the first time I saw you in person in a show, and
I was Lunenburg.
It was Lunenburg. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking, oh, well, I'm going to have to laugh. I have to, I'm going to have to laugh and make sure that, we support him. And then I didn't stop laughing from the time we sat down, from the time my butt hit the chair till we left. And my husband said the next day, the thing he enjoyed most about the show was seeing how hard I was laughing. So it was beautiful, but it was also,
so nice.
It was
That's
my introduction
so nice.
to your kind of comedy, which is different than anyone else I know. You are a thinking man's comedian. And I want to know, how do you describe your show? What do you set out to do other than make people feel good? What's your real aim in a stage show?
Unity, I suppose, rather than divisiveness.
Yeah.
And I hear from people when I get too political, they don't want that from me. And when the Orange Mutant was running America into the ground, that low-hanging fruit that was Trump, it's like you're swinging at a piñata, right? And you
it was hard to resist, right?
Help but, right? And but I was proud of some of that content.
Absolutely.
In my case, I can't work these things out at the club. I mean, I went to a club for the first time in, 18 years, a couple of weeks ago, and because, my eldest, who's 32, and my youngest, 27, sometimes it can be blunt to Dad, you're going to have to go to the clubs. Your audience is getting old. I said, well, I'm old. Maybe they'd like to hear more jokes about how I have tennis elbow and I only played 7 games in my life. Yeah, I had tennis elbow, my left arm. I played 7 games of my life, Nancy, and I'm right-handed. So Jesus.
It was probably from drinking beer or not playing tennis.
Yes, and then the chiropractor says, how do you sleep? On your arm, on your back, on your stomach? I said, I don't know, buddy. I'm asleep. That's what I get for going to one of those fake doctors, right? Chiropractor. Anyway, so I did. And I thought, what? You're not talking about anything. You're not talking. What's your point of view?
Yeah.
It's all over the map. There were 2 out of the 10 that were good, and one guy was excellent. But I can't bear lazy comedy. Mm-hmm. I can't bear a comedian just standing on stage using the audience as his sounding board. Hey, where you from? All that stuff that you get from openers. And once I moved, hosts in a club, right? I like to see an act. And that's what they used to tell me at Rumors Comedy Club too in Winnipeg, which was one of the best independent run clubs in the company years ago. Because I started at the Laugh Resort. I wasn't a Yuck Yucks comic when I did play the clubs 5 years. But the winter I did play Yuck Yucks, I learned a great deal. You're playing 11 p.m. on Saturday night, living the Canadian showbiz dream in Sudbury when, 30 liquored up miners come in from the bottom of the earth where they've been digging nickel all week. And suddenly you gotta get your laughs. Well, you flip the metaphorical knife from your boot and slice your way to safety. And in those days too, there was still smoking, right? So everybody's chain smoking. There's big clouds of smoke rolling up to the stage. Your eyes are watering. Guys are drunk. Some guys yelling at another guy across the way, and you're trying to just get their attention. That's why acts get excessively blue and dirty, because it's the only way you can get attention, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, but Second City once again gave me the emphasis on structure. And structure is important in my shows. So there's a lot of things that come into play, but I like to make sure everybody's getting their money's worth, because there's so much hype that drives entertainment these days. And there's so many reasons to make people stay at home prior to the pandemic, of course. So if someone's going to pay $60 and get a babysitter and maybe have a meal and call up a couple of friends and make the effort to drive through a snowstorm to see me, I'm going to give them a show.
Yeah, I love that. Who first inspired you with their comedy? When you were a kid, who was the comedian that you looked at and went, I want to do that, or I want to be like that?
Saturday Night Live in 1977. That really was the mark for me. that original cast. I remember seeing it on ninth floor Kroll Tower and went, what the hell is this? I used to watch Don Kirshner's rock concerts at this time. And no, boom, here it comes. It's Aykroyd, it's Belushi, it's Bill Murray, it's Gilda Radner, it's Lorraine Newman, and Garrett Morris, and Chevy Chase. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And
they were really legitimizing comedy as a career.
You're exactly right. They legitimized comedy as a career. And I found out, where did they come from? Who are they? And they came from Second City. Mm-hmm. So after graduation, I went up and I took the classes in Second City, and that's how I got I got hired a year later. And I tried stand-up that first year too, and it was, I didn't like bombing. I couldn't take the bombing, because the first night I did great. And then night after night after night after that amateur night, I just kept getting crappier. And I thought, geez, I can't do this, man. I gotta be around people.
That sounds like golf, a little bit.
And the energy at Yucks was very competitive in those days. It was dark and competitive. Yeah. And once I got into Second City, there was a whole different vibe. It was fun, and you were around people and you made fast friends. And a year later, I met June, and we stayed together for 23 years and had two beautiful daughters out of the relationship before we split. So, there's a lot of good that came into my life from joining that organization, besides the disappointment. And I talk about it in the book, how, it's like a batter loses his edge or a goalie loses his concentration. There was a standard of improv that wasn't copacetic with my energy. Let's just say that. And I got let go, and it was a hard thing to hear when this had been my dream in Toronto. So that was a big setback, to be let go from an organization that I was a real star in the touring company, and we all got along. And then the pressures of main stage in downtown Toronto, and everybody who was anybody was shooting a movie in Toronto at the time. And this was always a stopping place, I remember Robin Williams came down and improvised with us 5 nights in a row after doing his own show at the Hummingbird Center. He did 2 hours there, came with us, did an hour set improvising with us, then did another hour of his own material. It was like nothing I'd ever seen. It was a starburst. But everybody'd come through, and there was always pressure to be as good as the SCTV people that were on the air at the time. But lo and behold, life's all about the long haul. 35 years later, I get a call from Andrew Alexander, the chap who gave me my pink slip all those years ago, and said, look, Ronnie, we want you to open for SCTV's Netflix special being directed by Martin Scorsese at the Elgin Theater and hosted by Jimmy Kimmel. And so I guess he felt that the improviser I tried to be 35 years ago wasn't the stand-up that I became after all those years on the road. And so it's about the long haul, Nancy, and it's about never, ever, ever giving up.
So, Ron, when you look back, do you have regrets?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were going to say, well, yeah, no, it was good that I got dumped at that time that I did way back then.
I made some personal choices I'd rather not go into. But yeah. But, I guess everything happens for a reason. And you just keep going forward. And I just love this work so much, And I just love looking down from the audience and seeing people laughing, Nancy. I think I try my best to carry that sense of hospitality that my parents had for anyone and everyone who crossed their threshold.
Oh, that's great.
In Halifax, and mind you, my sister and I used to get bent out of shape on Christmas morning. It's like, we just opened the gifts. Can we please have 15 minutes of ourselves before every Newfoundlander in the city comes in the house? How's she going today, boy? What did you get, kids? Some cousin comes in and breaks your hockey game. What the hell? Hey,
So they were hospitable to a fault.
To a fault, drinking my father's rum or my mother's pig skin and hot Cape Breton tea.
Watch out.
And biscuits and good neighborhood, good friends, and colorful relations. It all made for a colorful tapestry that I could draw from my entire life. I mean, when I have a father who, when I was flunking maths, could look at me and say, "Jumping, gentle German Jesus on a unicycle. You better start passing math, you sawed-off little Christer, or there's going to be a stranger in hell for breakfast by the Lord snapping arseholes." If you can't get mileage on that, Nancy, but, comedy, it's not like it was an option. I had a Cape Breton mother, a Newfoundland father, and I was 41 pounds and I was 15 years old, and 37 of that was my friggin' head. It's like when Bill Lynch came to town, Mom had to hide me, right? Take the lady up the street. She's 5 years into menopause and has a big beard. Get her. Right? Right? No. Jesus, okay. It's unbelievable. It's like when I went to the doctor and I had a torn meniscus from running. He said, "Your injury is typical of aging athletes." I said, "Athlete? I got 7 goals in 10 years playing Halifax minor hockey and 6 were on my own friggin' net. Athlete. Jesus. Anyway,
my gosh.
But look, that's the whole thing, man. You either love the game or you don't. And I'm 64 the end of January. I've just been very fortunate and grateful to have been given the opportunity to actualize my calling.
Ron, there's a lot of Canadians who have made it big in comedy. Where are the funniest people in Canada? I'm going to ask you to choose a region. Are you willing to do that?
Oh no, that's impossible. That'll piss them off and tour the whole country.
Okay.
What are you, crazy? Right. I got to play BC in November too.
Okay.
But look, I'm going to tell you, pound for pound. I'm going to say pound for pound. And this means no disrespect to any other corner of Canada. Newfoundlanders, man. Yeah. Newfoundlanders, Nancy.
It had to be.
God almighty. I just played the Writers' Festival in Newfoundland. First time I was on stage in a year. Oh my God. And I said to them, for the love of God, you can't stop talking, can you? Can I just get a double and a donut? I don't need to know the size of the cyst they found on your brother-in-law's third cousin's Pekingese dog in Fort Mac. Shut up. And I'm telling you, I was there for 4 days and I came away there thinking, if a person doesn't leave Newfoundland with a smile on their face and a spring in their step, there's not a medication in the world that can put one there.
Right on.
And this is all due respect to my Cape Breton roots and all due respect to Haligonians that I grew up with who always made me laugh and all the other people across the country. There's something magical about that chunk of Gondwana land sitting in the North Atlantic, already old as God and a long gone be tucked on. That's got some kind of special dust sprinkled on it because it's remarkable.
I love it. Okay, and so my last question has to be, if this book is a love letter to Canada, what do you love about this country of yours?
Our generosity of spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Our generosity of spirit. I remember when Fort Mac burned.
Right.
I'm in downtown Toronto in Corktown in a condo, and there's nothing but condos around me. Okay? And when Fort Mac caught on fire, was it 8 years ago now? There was a big dumpster, like when you do renovations, just at a store around the corner from me.
Right.
And for a country ridden these days, it seems, with finger pointing, polarity, and schisms, that big dumpster filled with clothes, toys, and items for the people of Fort Mac in 48 hours. And it's remarkable how small town Canada feels during times of crisis. And I wish to God that this idiocy perpetrated by anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers, anti-this, anti-that, and how the libertarian ethos take a backseat to community so we can wrestle this pig to the mat and finally move forward. Because we're not going to be able to if we don't join together as a community. And I think that generosity of spirit exists in this country. We just have to remember to find it again. And it's there. Look at what the Maritimes did last year with the Atlantic bubble. It's generosity of spirit, and we have to marshal that communal spirit, because when me trumps we, everybody loses. And that's the way we got to pull together.
Right on.
Okay, but
thank you so much for your time. Thank you for this beautiful book. It's going to put smiles on a lot of faces and laughs in a lot of hearts.
Well, we'll see you in the kingdom before too long.
Sounds good, brother.
Thanks, you very much. Stay well, my friend.
Thanks so much for listening to the Canadian Love Map. If you love us, please subscribe and share. We'll be back next week with another love story to add to the map. This podcast is presented and made possible by Charm Diamond Centers. It's hosted by me, Nancy Regan, and is produced and distributed by Podstarter.